they've shouted us and said, right, you've got to walk now. And just as I'm about to walk out, he goes, Tash, and I went, what? He goes, don't forget, enjoy it. And I was thinking to myself, is he messing? Is he messing? After everything he's just said, being from Liverpool, being a woman, being, you know, a woman in sport, people put barriers up to who you can be, who you can become, what you can do. And I've always promised myself that I'd never fit into them stereotypical roles, and I'd always be who I wanted to be and express myself how I wanted to be. And I think sport gave me a way out to do that.
Delighted to have Natasha Jonas here. What a tremendous year you've had. I know we've been saying it the past few times, but you've had another accolade since the last time I've seen you, the first female to win British Boxer of the Year. So just topping off the incredible year, your goal was to be world champion. You became a bit of a belt collector last year. You got a few, and I'm guessing that you're after some more as well. But yeah, just signing off on a year like that to win British Boxer of the Year, what's that been like?
It was unexpected. You know, it was the first time we've had so many females in the category as well. I was up against Nina Smith and Chantal Cameron, as well as some other males. And, you know, just before, I was sitting and I was reading the names that have won it before me. I've seen, you know, your Ricky Hattons, your Lennox Lewis, Barry McGuiggans, and all big names, Crawler and Callum Smith as well. And I was just thinking, wow, like, it is. I didn't realise how prestigious it was. And then obviously they say my name and I was thinking, wow, like next year someone's going to be looking and it's going to say Tasha Jonas. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. Obviously 2022 was an amazing year, but it wasn't all about that year in particular. You know, that's 18 years in the making. It's 18 years of ups and downs, 18 years of sacrifices, and, you know, 18 years of hard work, and it finally paid off. And, you know, breaking another barrier and it being another first, which I love to do. And yeah, like I was, you know, pleasantly surprised, but also very humbled by it.
Because we were just talking about another person in Leon Edwards, who's had to fight and strive to get a world title shot. And once the world title glory comes, then thousands and thousands of people come out the woodworks. And like you just said, that year, even though in terms of your legacy, it's defined your career in terms of the world titles won, but that's years and years and years of hard work. So just in terms of that, do you feel like you needed that year to happen in order to feel content as a person? And I know that's a deep question.
No, it's a good question, and the honest answer is yeah. You know, it was the third time at a third different weight for me, third world title shot. So the pressure on that Namas fight, if I didn't win, there was nowhere else to go. You know, I'd been up the weights, been down the weights, you know, 3 different people. So the pressure was intense, and to get that, and then the opportunities to get 2 others, you know, and win them quite comfortably. Like none of them were close. I was happy. You know, and I finally, more so after the Namas, I just sat back and I was like whatever happens now is a bonus. I've done what I set out to do. I've got what I wanted, what I thought I wanted. And I think content's a big word, because I'm not content, because there's still a lot of stuff that I believe I can still do. But as far as the fear of not getting it, that's gone now, and everything else out is a bonus, and I'm out to enjoy boxing again.
Because as a fighter, you carry a lot of weight on your shoulders. Even though, you know, Gallagher's gym, it's renowned for being like a teammate style gym. You've had amazing people around you, such as Crawler, like you've mentioned, the Smith brothers over the years. But you are alone in there, and you're alone in your room after the losses. You're alone in your room after the wins. You've had many of those experiences. So even just heading back before boxing, because I know you had a tough time when you wanted to be a professional footballer, didn't you? And you had a bad injury that sort of put you at a crossroads. So I remember you speaking about that last time you spoke to Mawson. In terms of the learning experiences, that those sort of, I don't want to call them mental defeats, but they're in a way where you're being maybe extra tough on yourself, trying to decide what's to come next, and you've got to dig deep and give yourself a bit of self-love and find the next source of inspiration and drive and motivation for yourself. How do you find it getting out of those situations?
I think everyone's different, but there's certain things that I've promised myself as a kid growing up, you know, and just the standards that I set for myself, you know, leaving football and going into boxing. I knew what it took to be a dedicated athlete. You know, it's not the right thing to do, but kids are drinking on the streets at 15 and 16 and, you know, staying out late and saying they're staying in someone else's house. I wasn't that kid. I was, you know, I knew I always had training at the match on the Sunday, so I didn't go out on the Saturday. I waited till the Sunday, and there is, people only ever see, you know, that them instances that you're either in the gym or, you know, you're fighting, and they don't realise all the stuff, that the components that make up them 8 minutes when you're an amateur, or, you know, the 20 minutes now that you're in the ring, and it's hard and it's tough, but them bad times make the good times good. The highs and lows in boxing, that's why you see so many people struggle and believe, is that the highs of you know, is euphoric, and it's like it is like a drug in itself, and that's what you get addicted to. People say about, you get punched in the face, that, you know, you don't feel it, you're so on a high, and then you win, and then it's amazing, and then you lose, and then them lows are so low, and then places that you go to are so dark. But yeah, I think for me it is just a case of, yeah, I always knew who I wanted to be, and no, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew, like, I wasn't going to be like everybody else, you know. Being from Liverpool, being a woman, being, you know, a woman in sport, people put barriers up to who you can be, who you can become, what you can do. And I've always promised myself that I'd never fit into them stereotypical roles, and I'd always be who I wanted to be and express myself how I wanted to be. And I think sport gave me a way out to do that.
You mentioned that you had a clear vision of the type of person you wanted to be. Obviously, we've all been there in school and around our friends and stuff when everyone's been talking, what's next for you? Where do you want to go in life? When you've got big goals and aspirations, they're supposed to shock people, because it's not the norm for people to know exactly what they want to do, where they want to go. And, you know, if you're a little girl in class, 10 years old, saying, I'm going to be multiple weight world champion, I'm going to be boxer of the year, you know, 9 times out of 10, the teachers will laugh. Yeah. The teachers will laugh and go, okay, yeah, good luck with that sort of thing. But where did that self-belief come from? Was that passed down from your mother, from your grandparents? Who were the biggest influences and role models that reinforced that self-belief within yourself?
I think definitely comes from your family, your friends who you're around, and your environment, you know. I had 2 older boy cousins who I grew up with, and they are like me, you know. They're like my brothers, even though they're just my cousins. We all lived together, and they was the ones I was closest to. So, you know, naturally you kind of do the things that boys do. You go out and play football, climb trees, ride your bike, and that's where my love of sport started. But then, obviously, your family environment, it's like becoming an ongoing joke now, like a running joke in the family, that excellence is just the standard as a Jonas now. And, you know, the adults before us set a precedent. You know, they've represented England in karate, they've been professional bodybuilders, dancers, you know, whatever it was, whatever sport it was, we hold there's no boundaries for a Jonas. You can, you know, we've got professional football players now and professional bodybuilders now in my generation, and many representatives in many sports. So it's just the, you know, a bar that was set, and that every generation strives to do and be better, and your parents are encouraged. Every Jonas kid, all they want to do is beat the parents. That's it. My mum never let me win in anything. None of my uncles let me win in anything. But when I finally did win, I knew I'd done that on my own back, and that's the kind of thing that it was instilled from them onwards. But also that encouraging environment and the nurturing, and I can go to my uncle and say, right, I'm struggling with my diet, help me out. Or I can go to my other uncle and say, right, I need a bit of building up in this, you know. Or I can go to my mum and say, Mum, do you want to go on a jog? I can do that because we're all very active. But also at the times when I need the baby minding, I've got no issues giving the baby to my cousin or me, any of my two cousins or me mum or my nan for the week and saying, right, I've got to do this. Can you mind the baby? And there is no issue. So you need that support and that foundation to be there, to be supportive and to encourage you, because there is going to be hard times. No one sees the times after the Olympic Games when I cried for the whole day. But my mum and my dad and my cousins did. And one of the hardest decisions to ever make was to leave the amateur code, because there was no professional game at that time. And when I was coming back as a professional, the first two people that I asked was my cousin and my mum, because they see the horrible sides and they know what it's like. They know the pain that I went through, the sacrifices that I make. And they was like, yeah, what if you believe you can do it, we're 100% behind you, and that's what you need. You need your family to be there. Yeah,
because there have been, like we mentioned, a lot of those crossroads moments for yourself, like the football one that we mentioned, like after the Olympics. There wasn't that pro side of it in the women's game, was there, for you to transition in at that point, and you was having your daughter, so you had to make that decision to leave at that point, which it was an amazing moment in your life, but it was tough as well, because at that moment your dream was going from a professional sense as well. So what was that experience like?
I think when I left, obviously I decided to try for the baby. I had a miscarriage before I actually had my daughter, but you need something to fill that void. And it just so happened that I got pregnant, and that filled the void. But it was a tough decision, because all I've ever known from being 21 to I think I was 30 when I left was boxing, and even at the amateur level, I quickly got onto GB. I was quickly going to, tournaments with England, and I was sacrificing jobs. I was sacrificing, and everything was around reaching a goal and meeting that target. So when that's taken away, that's a big void to fill. It was my job, it was my life, it was, it was everything. And when it was gone, there was nothing there to replace it. And like I say, I fell pregnant quite quickly. And, the pressures that you have of being a mum quickly filled that void. But then when she was in her own little routine and was doing her own thing, and you finally settled as a mum, it was like, okay, now what do I do now? She's in nursery 9 till 5 or whatever it was, 9 till 3. And I was like doing bits of self-employed work at the time, but I was basing it around her. And I was like, well, yeah, what do I do? What do I do now? Like your identity kind of goes, because you're always Tasha the boxer, and now I'm just Tasha. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, massive hats off to you for everything that you've done, because, lesser people will have maybe walked away from it at certain points. And in terms of the sport of boxing, getting punched in the face, it's not a regular thing that the human experiences. Seeking that day to day in training and in combat, in the fights. What was that experience like in your first amateur fight? Like taking a hit to the face? Do you remember the emotions? Do you remember seeing the gloves in front of you, seeing your opponent, wondering what they were thinking?
Yeah, so when I started, obviously it was still in its very infancy stages. There wasn't many girls about. There wasn't like the, schoolgirls and juniors and seniors and open class, and there was just, you fought, and you were lucky to have a fight if there was another girl that was close to your weight. And we used to spar with Anastasia Cousins, it was. And it just so happened that she was around my weight. So when it came to my first fight, she'd already had a fight, and I wanted my first one, that I ended up actually boxing my mate.
Wow, it's tough.
It was tough. Yeah. But obviously, in you go through a whole stage of learning before you get to the ring. It's not just a case of you go training for a week and then the next week you're boxing, like people sometimes think. You're training for a long time to be prepared, and you're sparring, and you're doing all them things to get you prepared to be in the ring. And obviously when I started, I'm 21, I'm not a kid. I'm an adult, and I kind of, like I said, I knew what it took to be at that an elite level athlete. And yeah, I wasn't really scared to do anything. I'd done all what I thought was big before. So to go in, I just remember it was in the Adelphi, and everyone's screaming. You had like all the Smiths on, all Tony Bellew was on, you know, Joe McNally, Declan O'Rourke. Everyone was like boxing, and all these like good. They was all on England by that time. Joe Selkirk a lot. So they'd all weighed in and stuff, and then I'd weighed in, and then as I was walking to the ring, I said, you know, it's our club show, so it was Tasha Jonas, and everyone's, hey, go ahead, girl. And I was, woo, I like this. Yeah. And then I got in the ring, and I won in the second round. And I got out, and someone, like, half drunk, someone's dad was like, yeah, make sure you don't give that up, girl. Make sure you do it again. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I will do. So I went to my trainer, who was Sylvia Singleton at the time. And I said, like, get me another one of them. I enjoyed that. Like, she went, well, it won't be our club show, but we'll get you one. And, you know, it happens. That was the hook right there.
So was you balancing, I'm guessing, you was balancing a day job with the amateur stuff. So what was that like, and what were you doing?
I was just working on the phones mainly for banks and for internet companies, for Vodafone, I think, catalogue companies, everything. And then I got on England. Now, when you get on England, sometimes we'd be going away to like the European Union or the Europeans or even the Worlds. And we used to have a training camp the week before. So I'd be going to the gym before I started work, going to the gym after work. And then it'd come to the training camps. And if it was a big competition like the Worlds, we'd probably have a 10-day training camp. So then I'd need 10 days off, plus the week of the tournament for the thing. And you know yourself, like, you can't be asking work for 20 days off at a time. Yeah. For, you know,
I'd love to.
Yeah, 2-3 tournaments a year. So they'd be like, you've only got so many holidays. And I was like, well, you either give me the holidays or to leave. And they were like, well, you're going to have to leave. So I was in and out of jobs for a long time in England. And then I got the council done like an initiative where if you was you know, an athlete heading towards that like Olympic style program, this was Liverpool City Council, that they would sponsor you a job. So then I got a job working in the call centre in Liverpool Direct, and any time that I needed off for training, I was allowed off. It wouldn't always be paid, but you'd still be allowed that time off and you could return to your job. So that helped massively, because then I always knew I was coming back to a job. And then I got onto GB, and then you're a funded athlete. So that Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, sometimes you're just living in Sheffield. You come home at the weekend, go back there on the Monday. So that was like the kind of transition, the progression of my boxing.
It's crazy because every fighter has to go through that experience at some point. And you know, I was talking to you about bare knuckle fighting off camera and the amount of money that those guys get paid. A guy called Connor Tierney, who's from Birmingham, he's headlined a recent bare knuckle show in London. Big payday for him, and he still works 9 to 5 every week, 5 days a week as a quantity surveyor, because he feels like he needs to be busy. Yeah. He needs to be busy during the day and do training, but it's so demanding. You know, obviously Molly McCann as well.
Yeah,
Meatball Molly because of the Subway job as well. But how drained were you at that point?
I don't even think you recognise it as drained, because it just becomes a routine, and like routines change all the time. Yeah. You know, so your body gets used to either not doing what it was, or you know, having a little less sleep and rushing. Like even now, my whole life's a rush. I rush from dropping the baby off in the morning, and then I rush to Joe's. And then I do my training, I rush to the for an interview. Then I'm going to rush back and drop my key off. And then I'm going to rush and go and get my hair done. And then tomorrow, and then I've got to rush and take the baby to one of her clubs. Right. What day is it today? Wednesday. So she's in gymnastics. So then we've finished, and then it's kind of like, breathe. And then tomorrow we do it all again. I'm at, Aintree for the races. Then I've got to go to see Johnny. Then I've got to do this. And the whole thing just starts again. So every day you just get into a routine of what works for you. But it can be draining, and it is hard. But like that life of an athlete isn't for everyone. That's why I've seen so many boxers that are better than me in the ring, but they just can't commit to that lifestyle because it is hard.
Because I spoke to a few people about this. Actually, Floyd Mayweather, when he came over for one of them exhibition bouts, I'm going to ask the same question to you. Obviously, we discussed everything that you've achieved, and you've just mentioned your hectic lifestyle, even away from boxing, doing all the things you do on a day-to-day basis. Do you give yourself maybe a moment each day or week to actually reflect and say, like, I've done these things that I wanted to do. I've become the person that I always wanted to look up to as a kid. Because I think that's all we want to be when we're older. We want to be the person that we needed as a kid. Do you ever give time to yourself and think, just slow down for a second, actually reflect on what you've done?
We definitely should do it more. But like you said, we don't.
Yeah.
No one likes to give themselves flowers.
No.
And yeah, it's only when something big happens. So either a fight's happened and I'll look back at the camp, or I'll look back at like what we've just achieved for the last 3 fights, obviously. Or like the Olympics. And I was so adamant about messaging all the Olympians and when they was in going through that tournament, to say enjoy the moment, because you're so focused on the result that you forget the moment. And I even though I had, you know, obviously I lost to Katie, which wasn't nice, but I had an amazing time and an amazing experience in the Olympics. But at that time, because I was so focused on a result, that I didn't enjoy it. And I messaged every single one of them, the 2016 and the 2020, and said, like, just make sure you enjoy it and like take it in and do it. Someone told me to do a video diary, and I remember doing a video diary and saying, you know, today we've had training, or, you know, such and such is on tomorrow, and I was thinking, I hate doing this, but now when I look back, I'm like, oh, I remember that feeling. And I in the video diary, I say, like, oh, it's my first fight I'm on tomorrow. I'll be the first female in the team to go up. And, you know, and now when I watch that back, I think, wow, how amazing was that? Or, you know, when I go to school and I'm telling kids ask me questions and I tell them about it, I get them that same emotion and them same feelings, because I'm remembering the experience. But unfortunately for me at the time, you just don't, you're so focused on the result that you don't enjoy the present. And I wouldn't say that I give myself daily, you know, praise or anything, or time to reflect, but I definitely do now live more in the moment. So I enjoy the experience while I'm in it, because I don't want to always have to look back and think, oh, that's how I did feel then, or that's how it was then. So I enjoy the moment now a bit more while I'm in it. And that's only through going through all of them things that now I do. I don't give myself praise, but I enjoy the moment.
Because that's the annoying thing, isn't it? When it's the biggest thing to happen to you in your life professionally, at that point, you can't experience it as an enjoyable thing, because the pressure to perform and the pressure to get the job done.
Yeah. The result that matters.
You can enjoy it looking back on it, but it's so annoying that you can't get that. Because I've had it as well. Like when I'm working with the UFC or something like that, that's like a childhood dream of mine. Or interviewing certain people, it's like you only enjoy it maybe when you watch it back. I'm guessing that's the same for you. When you watch the fight back, you're like, well, I actually did that. When you're in there, you're thinking, I don't want to get punched in the face here. I've got to duck here. I've got to do all that sort of thing. In the changing rooms, you know, you've got Joe shouting at you 24/7.
Joe's always shouting at you. I remember him saying, like, as this is an Anamas fight, he's saying, right, you know, stay focused, stay on it, you know, because they'd shout at us by this time. Yeah. And he's like, remember everything that we've done in camp, you know, and he's going through around the pads, and he's like, you know, jab and keep your legs moving and he's going through everything that we've literally done for the whole camp, just talking me through it. And then, like, they've shouted at us and said, right, you've got to walk now. And just as I'm about to walk out, he goes, Tash. And I went, what? And he goes, don't forget, enjoy it. And I was thinking to myself, is he messing? After everything he's just said, like, stay focused and all that, and now he's saying enjoy it.
But he'll be experiencing the same thing from his perspective, won't he? Because you're like his baby in a way.
Of
like
course.
He's helping shape you into the fight that he wants you to be.
He's been through everything I've been through. Like the thing about Joe and trainers that, you know, we don't, like, we as athletes and as fans sometimes take for granted, is that when it's over for me, I go off and, you know, have a holiday and, you know, have a week off. Joe's just on to the next one.
Yeah.
Sometimes in one event, he could have 2 or 3 people fighting. So his mind's on that but then it switches to the next one, switches to the next one. And when yous are over, then he's on to the next bill. And like, who's on that and what have I got to do? And it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
He's someone I think definitely doesn't give himself time to...
I don't think he can.
Because he can't.
Yeah, I don't think... Some people, like, thrive in chaos. And I think Joe's one of them.
And it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame because, like, I think anyone that's driven and that wants to accomplish all the goals onto the next one, onto the next one, when you're doing regular, everyday stuff, you kind of feel guilty for it. You kind of feel like, I should be pushing myself. I should be in some sort of... not pain, but I should be pushing my body through something or pushing my mind through something to achieve something. And when you're not achieving that, when you're just having, I don't know, like a Sunday roast with the family, so you do feel guilty. Joe's a massively important person in your life, like we mentioned. Do you remember the first moment that you met him? And he's a very unique character, isn't he? He lives, breathes, sleeps the sport. Like you said, I imagine after a session with you, he'll just go back and study. I can't imagine him doing anything away from boxing.
Yeah, the first time I met him, he'd brought Callum to GB. So Callum had turned over by this time and he was coming up and sparring the likes of Frotch and stuff because obviously they used to train in Sheffield with Rob. And it was always just that, yeah, you're right, hello. And then we obviously used to go to the fights and see him then and, you know, shake your hand. And then when I was thinking about going pro, I'd messaged him and said, look, Joe, you know, there's a big opportunity I feel there's a big opportunity for females in boxing now. And, you know, I think you would suit me in the sense of, you know, I've been out for 2 years. I haven't boxed for 2 years. And I think you're a really good coach, like, you know, with no disrespect to any ones that he's had, but he's taken people that maybe people thought were maybe British level and took them to a world champion. So I knew, like, I was starting from literally the beginning again because I hadn't done nothing for 2 years. And I said, like, I would like you to be my coach. And he was like, coming down and have like a trial period. So I turned up on my day, and this is where Miss GB comes from. So I turned up for it. He said there was a 2-week trial, I think it was. So I turned up on my first day. When I just left GB before I retired from GB, they'd give me a brand new kit. Every so often you'd get a new kit. So I had this brand new kit for 2 years that I'd never wore. You know, a couple of pairs of shorts, a couple of leggings, a couple of t-shirts. So when I started going to Joe's, I thought, I'll wear that. So obviously it was all GB branded and GB boxing on it. So that's where Miss GB comes from. Wow. Stephen Smith was like, oh, here she is. There's Miss GB, head to toe in GB kit. So that's how it all started. But, you know, when I first went, you know, Joe is very intense. And he was like on it. He wanted to see you break and see your breaking point and then push you past it and see how you reacted. So, you know, we had been doing stuff like in the pool, and we didn't swim on GB. We'd never swum as an amateur. And he was like, right, you're in the pool. And I was like, well, okay. And like the lads would be doing seven lengths and I'd be scraping 4 at the time. I eventually worked to 5, 6. But yeah, it was just pushing. And then he was like, right, I've spoken to the lads because you have to gel within everyone. Luckily enough, Crawler had always known. All the Smiths obviously I'd always known, and it was only really Ophi and Marcus that I didn't really know at the time, and Callum Johnson. So they were like, yeah, all the lads are like happy for you to be here. If you're happy, you can stay. And I was like, sound. And that's where the story began. Yeah,
the crazy journey, because obviously you turn pro, you go with Matchroom from that point on, and you got all the way to lockdown where you had 2 of your biggest fights of your career, the Terry Harper one and the Katie Taylor fight. Now that must have been so strange, so weird. I mean, when lockdown was hitting, everyone was sort of reevaluating everything. Everyone had a lot of time on their hands. I came to the gym in camp for the Terry Harper one. It was a very weird, surreal experience. Everyone had to have the temperature checks, the masks and everything.
Even the baby was off school, so she had to come on. She came to training with me, and she came to track with me, and because it was us in the gym, and it was, I think it was me and Callum me and Callum Johnson, I think it was, had fights at the time. So there was only us two and Joe in the gym. And then I didn't want to do that and then take the baby to my nan's and bubble with my nan, because my nan's vulnerable.
Right.
So I didn't bubble with anyone. And it was just literally 24/7. Me and the baby was everywhere. It was great that she was so involved, because she always knew she knows that I box, but she doesn't, and she knows that I go to the gym, but she didn't know what happened in the gym. So for the first time, she was like seeing what mummy does, and yeah, just to have her for that whole camp was mad. And she enjoyed it, to be fair. And it was a bit of a kick in the teeth to not come away with the belt for her.
Did the boxer signing, believe, was it 2021 or it was late 2021?
Yeah.
First fight they gave you was the world title fight.
No, so I had one in the November, which was a Caroline Dubois.
Okay.
And that was simply because what we got to realise about us is that we're self-employed athletes. So if we don't box, we don't get paid.
Yeah.
So throughout lockdown, the board, the British Boxing Board of Control, shut the borders. So only people in England could fight people. People in the UK could only fight each other. So that's how I got the Terry Harper opportunity, because there was nobody else for her to fight. I think the only other person that she could have fought, she'd already beaten. So it was the case of me or nobody, and that's how we got that fight. So yeah, I was just, by that time, I was relieved to be even just getting a payday. Katie Taylor happened after that, and then there was a long time like faffing about contracts and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the contract came to an end. I signed with Boxer, and then again, I'd been out of the ring since the Katie Taylor fight, I think, which was the May, and we're now talking November. I just wanted to fight and get paid. So we had a fight, and then we hit the ball rolling in the February, which was the second fight, which was Namas.
I mean, what Boxer have done for you, it's tailor-made for you. It's absolutely brilliant what Ben Shalom's done with you, because you're portrayed as the star attraction. You're not, I mean, it was quite clear that Eddie was more swayed with Katie Taylor. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean, she was the poster girl from the day dot, and didn't expect to be a poster girl for that fight either.
Yeah.
But I just always felt like no matter what I did or who I fought, I was going to be the away fighter, and that was one of the draws to Boxer. I felt like I wanted to be the A side. I wanted to be the home fighter, and
100%.
Like you said, that's what they've done. They've done for me. The downside to the last year, having 3 consecutive world title fights is now that's what the standard that people expect for every fight, which is going to be difficult to do, because nobody can have 2 years of world title fights. Yeah. So now when I say, right, I'm going to have a mandatory, everyone's like, oh, she's fighting this one, this one. But that's what always happens, people. You got Canelo fighting John Ryder, he's a mandatory, and everyone's like, well, that's a big step down, but that's his mandatory. So you've got to kind of play the game, and I'd love to keep having world title fights, don't get me wrong, I'd love to, but it can't always happen.
Do you think if you'd have grown up in this era that you would have been more swayed to MMA than boxing?
Knowing me, I've actually done a bit of. I remember in the lockdown going to MMA. Like I said, we weren't getting any fights. The board had stopped boxing completely at one stage, and I'd spoken to, or someone approached me with an offer from Bellator.
Wow!
And I started training in Next Gen, with Molly, with Liam McCord at the time as well, with my brother, and doing training. I was like, right, this is it. I'm going to turn over. I'm going to be. Do MMA and fight in Bellator, and that's when I got the Terry Harper opportunity, and it was like boxing's still my bread and butter, so I'll go back, and I went back, but I was literally this close.
Do you not think it's unfinished business, that then?
I would never say I wouldn't do one. I'd love to have just one, or whether that's I think there's opportunities in PFL now as well. Whether that's PFL, whether that's Bellator, whether that's UFC, wherever it is. I'll never say no to neither of them.
Because I've never seen you talk about that. I know you told me off camera last time you came about the Bellator thing, and I'd never heard you say that to the press or anything in any interviews. But that's like you seen MMA fighters want to come over to boxing. Like we said, there's pros and cons to both of them. The fighter pay is a discussion over in the MMA world, and the politics side of it in boxing is something that's always discussed due to the ongoing contract negotiations and stuff. You kind of know what you sign up for in boxing in that regard. The young fighters, they know what they're getting themselves into. The process of not knowing what's next and kind of being left in the dark in that regard of where your career is going, who you're going to be fighting, do you get anxious about it, or have you just learned to just let it be?
Unfortunately, you have to just learn. Like, it's just one of them things that it is. Like, it is what it is, literally, until it isn't. And then it's something. So yeah, you just get used to it. It's a little bit different when you're, not at that world title level, because world title, you kind of know the standard you're going to get, or the standard you're expected to box. But when you're coming up, you can just literally fight anyone, and that can change the day before, 2 days before, a minute before. I think on one fight, I had, from the Thursday to the Saturday that I actually fought, I had like 3 or 4 different opponents, and that's the way it can be.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. I don't envy you in that regard, because I'm the type of person I like to know what I'm doing, where I'm going, sort of thing, and I'm sure a lot of people are as well. But it's the nature of the sport.
I think coming from the amateur background helps, because, like say, you go to them tournaments, the Worlds, the Europeans, the EUs, and you don't know who you're boxing, and they get drawn on the day, and they've got to beat them to get to you. So it helps coming from that kind of background, because you can go to tournaments and not know who you're going to fight, and that helps. Yeah.
And in terms of where you are now, what would you say are the biggest qualities that you've seen in yourself, that you've seen yourself grow as a person in comparison to those amateur days? Are you easily recognisable to yourself?
I think there's everyone changes at different stages in life, and you like metamorphosize into something else, and certain things will bring out the best or the worst in people, but they'll make you change and evolve into something else. And I think the open off, being a mum, the stuff that the contract troubles that I had, and just the ups and downs of general boxing life always make you evolve into a different person. I think one of the biggest things about motherhood was that, like I say, when I say you're so focused on the results as an amateur and in that GB setup, because you was expected to get medals, so a medal was your bare minimum, and it was like, I'd have a bad spar, it'd wreck me week, or I'd go to a tournament, and if by any chance I didn't medal, like, then I'd be flapping, thinking, I'm going to get kicked off, and I've got to do better in my next one, and it'd be all the pressure until the next tournament, and then you go and win. But now I think as a mum, like, as soon as the door shuts to the gym and the door opens to the house, I'm just mum. I'm just Tasha, and that switch off really helps mentally more than anything, because she doesn't care if I had a bad spar. She just wants the dinner to be ready, or she doesn't care if you've got a cut eye or whatever. She just needs you to be mum. So that helps in that way. But also, I think, like I said before, just the appreciating the moment a lot more, and the living in the now, instead of worrying about being anxious about what's coming, or being upset about what's been. I just try and be in the present and stay in the present.
I mean, hearing everything that you've discussed, and the highs and the lows, if I was you, I'd be supremely confident, which I'm sure you are, because no matter what life throws at you, you've overcome and turned things around and got exactly where you wanted to be. And, we discussed the guys like Floyd Mayweather, that was just a straight trajectory. There wasn't many hurdles in a professional sense. I'm sure in his personal life, he had a lot of things to overcome that made that look easy. But do you think it helps you that you've had those experiences, and that that you can look yourself in the mirror and go, it doesn't matter how much I'm beaten down today on this instance, I'm talking in a metaphorical sense, that you can overcome it?
Yeah, I think there's loads of, like the sport and especially boxing as well. But boxing's just a skill. It's just a skill that I've learned to be good at. I can throw a decent jab, backhand, hook, uppercut.
Yeah.
It's just a skill. But the life lessons that you learn from it, I'm resilient, I'm hardworking, I'm determined, I'm motivated. I can speak to people on all types of level. I can work on my own. I can work in a group. And if you ask Jed, what would you want your employee to be? He'd probably say all them things.
Yeah.
So there's life skills that I've learned along the way, and sometimes they were skills that school couldn't teach me.
100%, because you were the type of person that you knew what you wanted to be in school. What was school like for you? Could you not wait to get out?
You know what I learned about myself in school? I did evolve in school is that I never thought I was clever, so I didn't try. And I struggled academically when I first went into senior school. And because I thought it was hard, I made it hard, and I didn't try. But then when I got the opportunity to go and get a scholarship to America, obviously you have to go and pass an SAT and get a certain score.
Right.
So all that, I couldn't do it and I won't do it, turned into I need to and I want to. And when I worked hard and I tried, and I put that same mindset that I do in my sport and I applied it to my schoolwork, then I did it.
Things can quickly change when there's motivation there,
exactly.
can't they?
Sport just happens to be my motivation for anything, but I can actually do the things that I thought that I couldn't.
Because some people do, like what you say, they convince themselves because they're not interested in it, that they're not any good. And then maybe they don't find that avenue that you found or that other people have found. And it is a shame. Is that something that you encourage to your daughter, like from the get-go? Whatever it is that you're passionate about, stray towards that, run towards that.
Yeah. I encourage my daughter to manifest whatever she wants. So whatever that may be. She manifests singing and dancing, which was not my thing.
Yeah.
But if that's what she wants to do, do it. Because my mum told me a story of when I was 4, watching the 88 games in Seoul. And I said, Mum, I'm going to be there. Okay, love, yeah, whatever. 24 years later, I'm there. And I remember as a young girl watching the World Cup and watching Mia Hamm play football, and I thought, well better than that. All I need to do is get to America and I'll be Mia Hamm, and I'll get £1 million sponsorship deal from Nike, and I'll play footy and be professional and have a house like they do on Cribs. And I didn't get there, but I didn't do bad either. I got there. So you've got to, them dreams to other people seem huge and seem mad, like you said before. They seem unreachable and unobtainable, but it doesn't. The how you do it doesn't matter as long as you believe it, and you'll do anything to do it, and it'll work out for you in the end. Like I've ended up going the Olympics in boxing, and I've never even put a pair of gloves on before. So,
did you pick and choose who you told those aspirations to? Because a lot of people kind of like to keep it to the family, people that won't put a negative influence on them, because you can get people, like I said, that grind you down, that want you to do the 9 to 5, that don't want to see you succeed, and just because it's something that they believe that they can't do themselves, they want to project that onto you. Did you ever experience that side of things as well?
Sometimes, but luckily, like I say, I've been lucky enough that my family's very, supportive and encourage. My teachers in school, especially when it came to sports and PE, were very supportive. And my friends that, none of them want to do what I do, but they are still very supportive. And I remember writing down, someone actually sent me a Millennium Volunteer. So I was a Millennium Volunteer, and we got to do the Commonwealth Games and stuff. And you have to give 1,000 hours of your time to whatever support sports in your area. And I wrote down in my Millennium thing in school, it said, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a professional athlete and have a good family and, have kids and stuff. And so they sent me it maybe 2 years ago. And I thought, wow, I was saying that in the Millennium when I was, I don't even know, 16.
That's awesome. Final one. Obviously, you're not thinking about walking away from the sport yet, but do you think that you'll be able to do it quite contently because you've set up yourself as a pundit now? So that's like another avenue for motivating yourself, to better yourself, to go into that presenting side of things, which you see a lot of athletes in football do as well. Keeps them around the sport, and you're bettering yourself in a different way as well. Is that something that you're looking at and thinking, yeah, that's going to motivate me more going forward as well?
Yeah, I think, like I say, it's such a big part of your life that you'll never be able to totally just walk away. And if you do, you probably struggle if you did. So, you know, I am looking at the management side of boxing. I would definitely go back and coach in the amateurs. And yeah, I've got the Sky Sports punditry, which is, you know, you won't be involved in the big main events, but you'll still be a part of them. And you've got the best seats in the house, just talking rubbish about everybody else's boxing. So,
yeah,
you know, what more could you not ask for? And not everybody gets them opportunities, but, you know, it's the way I've presented myself on the way up that has got me to open doors. And you've got to I'm a part of a parliamentary group. I mean, with people in Parliament over boxing and sports, and, you know, I never thought I'm just that snotty-nosed kid from Toxteth. I never thought I'd be doing things like that. But, you know, like I say, you've got to take your opportunities when they come and just put your best foot forward. And like you said, just be as real as you can. I don't believe I've changed that much.
No.
I'd like to not think so. So, yeah, I'm at my core, I'm still who I've always been.
Well, you've smashed every goal that you've had. You can be very proud of who you are, and it is very motivating to hear you talk about how you spoke those things into existence, because I think a lot of people can take a lot of inspiration from that. I'd love to spend more time talking to you, but I know you've got a busy day, so I don't want to keep you. But yeah, thank you very much, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Nice one, thank you.
you.
Thanks for having me.